In the past few years, the slogan "Tax the Rich" has been gaining traction both as a serious political goal and as an aesthetic for progressive thinking. It makes sense why the phrase rolls off the tongue nicely, it is easy to understand, and self-sufficient in its message, requiring very little explanation. And maybe most importantly, it presents an idea that is pretty uncontroversial among leftists, progressives, and even among some centrists and conservatives. It also directly addresses the very real problem of rich people using the system to avoid paying taxes, a problem which, over the past 7 decades, has become increasingly worse in the United States. There are multiple ways taxing the rich can be achieved, and there are many different proposals for it. One of the most recent ones was made in the US by President Joe Biden and congressional Democrats, who wish to raise taxes on the rich to pay for the $3.5 trillion plan to expand the nation's safety net. This is their general plan. The top marginal income tax rate will rise to 39.6%, up from 37%, and would apply to single filers with taxable income greater than $400,000. The top capital gains rate would increase to 25% from 20% for individuals earning more than $400,000 and couples making more than $450,000. In addition, lawmakers would put a 3% surcharge on individuals earning more than $5 million. This means that their top marginal income tax rate will rise to 42.6%, and it would push their capital gains rate to 28%. Before the 3.8% net investment income tax is factored in. That sounds actually pretty insignificant, even if we consider the raw numbers, which seem substantial only at a first glance. They would still represent a mere dent on billionaires' and millionaires' fortunes. Not only that, but the plan seems to ignore the most glaring factors that allow the rich to get away with it, which are inherited wealth that goes largely untaxed, and loans which billionaires take in order to finance a big part of their lifestyle. Also, it obviously does not even attempt to take a peek at the very root of the problem, which is how profit can still be produced infinitely under the exploitation conditions of workers. The phrase "tax the rich" is most likely derived from the "Eat the Rich" slogan, which in turn is derived from the quote attributed to Jean-Jacques Rousseau during the French Revolution: "When the people shall have no more to eat, they will eat the rich." Eat the rich has also become a popular saying among internet anti-capitalist circles, and sometimes, depending on who's involved in the conversation, both tax the rich and eat the rich can end up meaning the same thing, even though they very clearly express different messages. Now, eating the rich obviously has a much vaguer implication than simply taxing them. It is clearly metaphorical unless you're unironically into that sort of thing. But given the French Revolution context in which it was first applied, the way it has become popular on the internet in recent years, we can infer that the main idea would be closer to something like eradicating the rich. At the very least, it suggests a much more radical idea than simply taxing. That is why it would be inconceivable for politicians and famous celebrities to adopt "Eat the Rich" as their chant, as it would come into conflict with their very existence. And so, "Tax the Rich" becomes a much friendlier and moderate message, and we are supposed to believe that that was the original meaning of the phrase all along. It is not uncommon for Democrats and liberals to take a concept coined by leftists and/or social activists and adapt it as they also dilute its meaning and execution. Feminism, BLM, whether the phrasing stays the same or not, it always gets its anti-capitalist content taken out. Even ACAB somehow, which, how can you take the phrase "all cops are bastards" and make it non-revolutionary? I believe this process to be in part a conscious choice by political agents who wish to de-radicalize leftist slogans, and also something incidental that happens to a lot of political ideas that end up getting popular without actually being thoroughly understood by the people who appropriate them. Do not get me wrong, tax reform is an absolute necessity, but it has to pose actual significant change, and it should not be the end goal, but a mere step towards our actual objectives. And I'm not a tanky, a part of me does believe that change can come gradually, in small steps. Taxing the rich now can pave the way for even more meaningful change in the future. I am also not bothered by all rich people, especially when they are YouTubers and Twitch streamers who make most of their money from donations. And I also do not think of AOC and Democrats in general as plain enemies of the left, though they certainly try hard to be sometimes. But I do wish that somehow we didn't need to reduce the severity of our pleas or make them more aesthetically pleasing in order to get politicians to take them seriously. When AOC walked down the Met Gala red carpet wearing the Tax the Rich dress, while BLM protesters were being arrested in front of the event, I was unsurprised. Some people thought it was ironic that she would be wearing that while surrounded by millionaires who would come up to her and compliment her outfit. Some people said that that was the whole point. I myself think it was tacky, in bad taste, performative, and unhelpful, but it was also very consistent with how Democrats approach these kinds of issues and leftist ideas in general. So, in a way, it was very fitting. Ugly and meaningless portrayals of progressiveness are actually very in right now.